let's make something delicious. Now for these cinnamon raisin butterswim biscuits, you're going to start by having an 8x8 or 9x9 inch pan. Now I'm using an 8x8, you can use a 9x9. If you use a 9x9, they will be a little thinner and they won't take as long to bake. I have that lined with parchment paper. You really want to line it because the biscuits will come out much easier. And in that I have 1 whole stick of unsalted butter. You can use salted, but it will make the outside a little salty. So because these are a sweet biscuit, I choose to use unsalted butter. And I've taken out a little insurance policy. I have a baking sheet under there with parchment paper on top. That way, in case the butter kind of leaks out, you're not cleaning the oven. So now we are going to pop this in to a 425 degree preheated oven so that the butter can start melting. Now for the biscuits. You need 2 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of packed light brown sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 1/3 tablespoons, yes I said tablespoons, of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Now if you like more cinnamon, go with more cinnamon. Now you want to mix all this together. Break up any lumps in your brown sugar. Make sure they're nice and broken up into your mixture. And make sure your cinnamon is nice and distributed, because you don't want to do the cinnamon challenge with your loved ones. That wouldn't be nice. Now we are going to add 3/4 cup of raisins. If you like more raisins, put more raisins in. It's not going to hurt it. If you don't like raisins, then you're probably not making this recipe, so we don't have to go through that mess. So stir those raisins in. The reason I'm putting the raisins in now is so that they get nicely coated with the flour and they don't sink to the bottom. Now we are going to start adding our wet mixture, which is just going to be 1 1/2 to 2 cups of heavy cream, because we're going to do this also as a cream biscuit, which is going to make it nice and tender. So I'm going to start by adding the 1 1/2. It depends on your atmosphere, how dry your atmosphere is, things like that. Even the brand of flour that you use, how much liquid you'll have to add. So you'll have to keep an eye on it. And we're also going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, roughly measured of course. And we're going to start stirring that in and see where we're at. The 1 1/2 may be plenty, or we may have to add some more. You have to learn to let your dough speak to you, because it's going to tell you what it needs. Because butterswim biscuit dough, if you've never made butterswim biscuits dough needs to be wet and sloppy. That's what makes them so delicious, is that they're wet and sloppy. This, as you can see, is not wet and sloppy. So we are going to add some more. I'm going to add about 1/4 cup more, and we'll see from there. Now I'm going to add the other 1/4 cup. Now, if your atmosphere is very dry and it looks like that the 2 cups are not going to be enough, you can add more cream, or you can just add a little bit of milk. Because, face it, price-wise, milk is much cheaper than cream. Now, as you can see, it's nice and wet and sloppy. It's not at all like a biscuit dough, like you would think a biscuit dough should be, but it's nice and wet and sloppy. Because it is cold outside, the heat has been running, so it's dried out the atmosphere a little, so I did add about 1/4 cup of milk to it to finish thinning it out. You may or may not have to add that. So in the ingredients below, I will put that as optional. So now we are just going to wait for our butter to get done, and then we'll add it to the pan. Now our butter is out of the oven and it's nice and hot and melted, and that's what you want. You want it nice and hot. It's even sizzling a little bit. Now you want to dump your biscuit dough in. And like I said, it's nice and wet and sloppy. So you'll be able to push it to all the corners of your pan. Now you want to push it all out to all corners of your pan. Remember, be careful at this point because your pan is already hot. So be careful. You want it where you see the butter splashing up over the biscuit dough. You want it to do that. So you want to kind of encourage it to do that. Because after all, these are butter swim biscuits, therefore they are swimming in butter. Now you want to flatten it out. Now this step is optional. I prefer doing this. I'm going to go ahead and cut through the dough, make my score marks basically for my biscuits. This helps the butter to seep down between the biscuits. It also helps you to be able to get the biscuits apart easier when they are done baking, because usually they keep those lines. If you don't want to take the time to do this, you don't have to, but I think you're better off doing it. Now once your biscuits are scored, I cut them in 9 when I'm doing an 8x8 or a 9x9. I go ahead and cut them in 9. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop this back into our 425 degree preheated oven until they are nice and golden brown and set in the center. Now while those are baking, we will make our cinnamon vanilla glaze to go on top of them. Now some people may choose to make them without the glaze, some people may choose to make them with the glaze. I'm showing you how I would make the glaze to go with them. This is 1 cup of powdered sugar and 1/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. Now you want to make sure you mix those together really well. Now we are going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, roughly measured of course. And this can be anywhere from 2 to 4 tablespoons of milk. We will start with 2. Again, it depends on your atmosphere and a lot of stuff around you. And also how thick you like your glazes. If you like them really thick, then do less. If you like them very thin and runny, do more. If you add too much, add a little bit more powdered sugar. If you don't have enough, add more milk. It's all thoroughly mixed. Now, when you pick up the spoon and you do a figure 8, you should be able to see the end of the 8 when you're done, because that tells you that it's thick enough and not too thick. Now, this is also going to be sitting for a little bit while your biscuits are getting done. So, you want to cover this with plastic wrap, set it to the side. Now, in that time it may thicken, so hold on to the rest of that milk in case you need to add just a little drizzle more. So these beauties are out of the oven and you can see they're nice and golden brown on top. That brown sugar that you put in the dough helped get that nice golden brown on top. It's going to have a nice golden brown on the bottom as well. They baked for between 35 and 40 minutes, give or take a few minutes. It can be, depending on the day and things like that, it could be a little more than 40 minutes. But you will know they're done when you push on the center biscuit and it's springy. Now if it doesn't spring back, then it's not done. It's still doughy. So now you want to go back over your cuts. If you made the cuts initially, you want to go back over your cuts now before you put on your glaze, because you want the glaze to seep down between each biscuit. And this will help them pull apart easier into individual biscuits. Now our glaze is still a beautiful consistency. I didn't have to add any more milk. So now we are going to start putting the glaze on. You can do it decoratively, or you can just pour the whole thing on there and spread it on. This is a lot of glaze. You can use all of it, or you can just use some of it. It depends on how much glaze you like on things like this. With these, because it's a cinnamon vanilla glaze, I will go a little bit more glaze than I will on most of them, but I probably still won't use all of it. But this glaze is delicious. Because of that cinnamon vanilla flavor, it is delicious. So I'm stopping there, but you can add as much as you want. Let these cool just a little bit, because otherwise you are going to burn your mouth. Because they are going to be screaming hot right now because you put that glaze on while they're still hot. So just enjoy these with a nice cup of coffee or a cup of tea, or however you like your biscuits. And remember, come back next time to Angela K's Kitchen, where I take you from gourmet to everyday and everything in between. God bless.